Okay, I freed up some memory. I'll give this another try. Um, so I became aware of a situation where a person was making accusations that she'd been the victim of quite severe racism, and that was recent, and I was in the neighborhood anyway, so I just dropped in to talk to the people because it was apparently an institution-wide issue. That's what was insinuated among the teachers, and it wasn't just the students. It was the story that we heard, right? So if that's true, that's pretty incredible. That you got a bunch of racists abusing somebody in a school in a city in the year 2022. That doesn't wash, and it wouldn't wash. So you can tell the story's nonsense anyway. So I went and I talked to the people, and they said, but you just want to know, like, is it cool? Like, is there a real issue because of race and stuff like that? No, what are you talking about? They'd have trouble all the time, but I imagine, of course there'd be incidents and stuff, incidents and accidents. Um, and so I was curious because usually a person would hear, oh, there's reports of racism here and there, right? They would assume that it was coming from white people. But in this case, that's pretty hard to argue given that in the staff there might have been more white people, but in the student population, and they said that it was coming from the student population as well, I think. The student population is easily 60% from India. So if somebody was abusing the black people, you'd need to ask yourself which group would be more likely to do that. I doubt that very many black people would want to live in India, but they very much like it here. So that's the difference. And so it was an accusation. I'm not saying all, do you have to do that? Yeah, I guess. Not really. Everybody else, you get sick of hearing it, you get sick of saying it. They force it on you, kind of, right? Yeah, so I just went over there and I talked to them, and then I was wondering, okay, so is it resolved? And they said, yeah, it was resolved because actually we just had to get rid of one fairly senior person. So I had the audacity to ask about that because they really kind of did boil it down to one person, and maybe a couple of others or something like that. So I just asked and discovered that it was a Muslim woman, that the racism that was being directed towards the black girl, and they admitted that there was some, was coming from a Muslim woman in a senior position. So that's a different angle on the story, isn't it? It's quite an interesting angle on the story, especially when you think that it's a story of racism towards a black girl, who's not very black actually. But now it turns out that it's against the Muslim population. So it gives you an opportunity to think about whether you'd rather be a black person under Muslim rule, or because under Muslim rule, they lobbed off your Jolly Rogers first thing. They didn't allow black kids that they'd kill them. That's why there's no real black people. There's no African people in the Middle East, because they enslaved a lot more than the British. That's for sure, like by 1,000 times probably. It's the Portuguese that grabbed most. Yeah. Okay, so I just asked around, and so what happened is that I was just saying what I thought, right? We were just saying what we thought, and so it was kind of an interesting situation, like who's actually was being racist towards her, was anybody really being racist towards her? Who was it that was being racist towards her? Has an interesting answer, in that it was a Muslim in a senior position, was really taking a dump on this poor girl. If the story's true, I bet that there's something to it. What else? Yeah. So what happened? was that I turned around and I can spot them. You can tell by there's like a vibe comes off them, and you can tell they're the enemy. But that's absolutely not true. And one of the ones that really gets me is the green hair girls. You know, everybody complains about the green hairs and purple hairs and all that. The green and purple hairs, in my experience, like I'm just serious, are the most down to earth ones around. They're really cool. I have no, they're like rednecks. That's what they don't tell you about the green haired girls, is they're all rednecks. It's fantastic. They're great people. They're working hard, and the ones I meet are working hard. They probably have to work hard. They do have to work hard, obviously. I mean, who else is going to build this thing? Except workers. So how did that resolve with the girl? Yeah, and so, yeah. So I didn't even see her face, so I didn't even know that, right? But I just saw the haunch there. I could there's a haunch. I've learned to recognize a sort of a haunch. And she was of a demographic that would find it sensitive, but maybe a little bit freeing as well, because I'm pointing out just the fact that where the racism was coming from. Because if they want to make that story known, and they have made it known, then they want to know. They want the truth of it to be known, and that's the truth of it. It's an interesting thing. Maybe she was really happy to hear me. Maybe she was really happy to hear me say that. She could have been. Very likely could have been. So maybe there was no issue at all. But the thing is that on that kind of thing, there are demographics that you do not question in their presence. But is that really true? Is that a stereotype? I more and more coming to think it's a stereotype. You know, they can be a little pushy. Yes, it's all in my head. But the thing is that I wasn't that far away, and I saw a cop car. Not far from where I was, like driving into where I was, for sure. So, you know, that could have been a coincidence. How about that I'm talking about, what's that, Train Spotting, doing those quotes about Ewan McGregor, right? Where he's talking about, you know, how people always talk about the vileness of it, the pain, the addiction, the suicide, the despair, loss of family, friends, and reputation. Right? That's all that anybody ever talks about. And then he goes on to say, but what they forget is the pleasure of it. It's just a ballsy thing to say. Absolutely ballsy thing to say. Because it's exactly what you're not supposed to say. And the thing is, it's a good thing that you shouldn't be able to say that. Like, I bet that movie got a lot of people hooked on heroin. I bet it did. They got them thinking about it in romantic terms. Yeah, so I never saw her face or anything. I never saw her move. And then a little bit later, I saw a cop car headed that direction. So maybe nothing happened at all. Maybe she didn't hear me. Maybe she couldn't speak English. Could have made the whole thing up. But I took the back roads. I did. I took the back roads. And I hightailed it out of there, too. It's just I have this instinct to run sometimes. It's a pathetic sight watching a 65-year-old guy gallop across the highway. Looking like he's being chased. Because in his own head he is, you know, he's barely across there. Fuck. Oh my god. And I really moved down through there too. I covered some new territory. Visited some vistas that I had visited before. There's her. Yeah, I guess this thing's getting a bit corny now. Never blows in the wind anymore. It's getting kind of ragged, bleached out looking. It's been hanging out there in the sun all summer. That's pretty good. There we go. Yeah, I planted this flag. One of the first things I did was plant this flag. That felt good, man. That really did. It was hilarious. And at that time, I had the chair out here set up really high. So people would come over, right? And the chair, the way it's set up, it's like right crammed in the corner, right beside the glass, right? And it's quite high up. So you kind of get lifted above the railing, not really lifted above the railing, but you know the thing is that the setup makes you think about falling over the edge. And it did. It made it feel like you had fallen off the edge, man. You had to think about it, right? Yeah. So that was set up right here, and yeah, I had the flag up. And then I had tables here, and so you'd have to kind of scrunch over it. So especially if somebody else is coming through or whatever, you know, scrunch over, and then get over in here. And there's a chair. It's good, but it's quite high, right? So it's right in the corner, but like you sit more like kind of over the edge. Like it was just real fucking pretty spooky, really. And I used to sit out here all the time, but I approached it pretty slowly, right? And not many people ever sat out on that chair, but Grandma did. I was really impressed by that. That was really good. Yeah. I'll set it up like that again sometime. I got all the same stuff. Alrighty, so that's the midnight snack.